So good afternoon. I am Mary Ann Waslowski, and I will give a more formal introduction in just a minute. We are here today to ask the Board of County Commissioners to approve the proposed Health Service District Plan so the voters of Platte Canyon area can decide for themselves whether they want to create a health service district. We are the Platte Canyon Health Service Committee, an all-volunteer group with our neighbors, and collectively, we work daily with our neighbors and collectively contribute thousands of hours each year in service to our community. Before we introduce ourselves, I wish to clarify our role for our public. A health service district plan is not a clinic business plan. Under Colorado statute, a citizen-led committee like ours can submit a basic plan showing a need and feasibility for a health district. That's what we are here for. That's been done, the first step. And it's just like any fire or school or water district. If voters approve the formation of the district, then an elected, unpaid board, not this committee, will be responsible for the full operational plan, funding, staffing, providers, services, and clinic location. We are not proposing those final decisions. Our job is simply to bring this forward so the people of our community can choose whether or not they want a health service district. So now I'd like to introduce our members of our committee. Charlotte Wattias is an RN with a master's in nursing. She's a veteran of the Army Nurse Corps, a nurse practitioner, and former faculty member at 2 family medicine residency programs in Colorado. Patty Lucy retired from telecommunications and law enforcement victim advocacy. She sees firsthand how a lack of local healthcare services leads to a downward spiral in people's lives. Tim Peterson, a disabled veteran and father to a son with special needs covered by Medicare and TRICARE. And Deb Elsner, a former Platte Canyon School Board member and past president, serving for 10 years on the school board, a longtime community champion who guided this team through the health service district submission process. Kim Mickelson, a Bailey business owner, a chamber board member, and retired CEO of a national marketing communications firm. And I am Mary Ann Waslowski, a retired pediatric nurse who understands deeply the long-term impact of inadequate healthcare access on families and communities. We are also grateful for the guidance of our advisors. Dick Elsner, a former Park County Commissioner who was on the BOCC when the South Park Health District Service plan was approved. And then Rob Green, a retired corporate executive and former president of the Platte Canyon Chamber of Commerce. And our attorney here today, Dylan Woods of Cody & Woods. Thank you. Before I begin our presentation, I wanted to add 2 more things to the record because they came in fairly soon today via email to you guys. They are. The first is from the Platte Canyon Chamber of Commerce, and their board has submitted a letter in support of the placement of a health service district proposal on the November ballot. And the second one is from the House of Representatives Office of Speaker of the House, Julie McCluskey, who also has given us a letter of support for the Platte Canyon District Committee proposal after reviewing our plan. And so she has also sent one. These came to you through email, but I have hard copies for you today that you can look at. Charlotte, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. Next slide, Patty. Yeah, thanks. So this service plan is prepared and submitted by the Platte Canyon Health District Committee. It's dedicated to meeting the healthcare needs of Park County residents. This plan follows previous plans submitted on April 4th of 2024 and June 20th of 2024. It expands information to address concerns expressed during the May 14, 2024 public comments, the May 14, 2024 BOCC discussion, and the June 4th, 2024 Board of County Commissioners written reasons for denial. It addresses the concerns raised by the Park County BOCC in 2024. Why are we here today? There are no primary care providers in the Platte Canyon area. The most recent healthcare provider left the district 16 years ago due to a lack of funding. It is important to note that they closed due to funding and not to a lack of patients. We are 10,000 people. The population of Platte Canyon area has grown to more than 10,000 people, almost 11 now, and healthcare access for the residents in the district falls on the individual and their ability to travel long distances to the Denver metro area to get care. Geographically, the only route to access healthcare is Highway 285, a mountain road through a twisting canyon that can be treacherous during winter months and is often closed due to vehicle accidents. When residents cannot access healthcare with their own resources, the Platte Canyon Fire and Ambulance District becomes their gateway to healthcare. Treating and transporting patients one at a time to a Denver hospital emergency department is the most expensive way to deliver healthcare and is a waste of our taxpayer money. Transportation challenges mean people sometimes skip needed care, resulting in poor health outcomes, excuse me, or even death. We are here to change that. In rural, underserved populations, a health service district is an essential step in providing the most cost-efficient healthcare delivery system, that of local access to a community-based primary healthcare center. Formation of the district will benefit all citizens of the proposed district, as the district will be focused on returning quality primary healthcare services and facilities in the Platte Canyon area. This plan solves our current barriers of distance, funding, and access. It will bring much needed mental health care to the area. It will reduce the strain on our EMS. If the voters approve a health service district, a full-time primary care clinic could be a reality in 2026.
I'm Charlotte Wattias, and as Mary Ann said, I am a retired family nurse practitioner, also a former veteran service officer here in Park County. The proposed service area for the Platte Canyon Health Services District is basically the same area as the Platte Canyon School District RE1. Looking at our changes in population, first of all, in the circle, you will see that over 60% of the entire population of the county is in our district of Platte Canyon. The population is nearly 11,000 people and is 4 times the size of the whole rest of the county. Let me just add a couple of other things. Some changes that we are anticipating by 2030 is that the number of 85-year-olds will increase 191%. Those that are 75 to 85 years old will be up 108%, and 65 to 75-year-olds up 7%, which portends a very sharp increase in Medicare and Medicaid insurance needs. At this time, almost 50% of households with 60-year-olds, as well as almost 20% of households with children, are on food stamps. 14.5% of households are on Medicaid. 9% of households in the county have no health insurance. This data indicates probable difficulties in the future with accessing health care for those who must go to Denver for health care.
So I'm Patty Lucy, and I'm going to address some of the healthcare inadequacies in our area. So we have no full-time healthcare providers, including we don't have a clinic, we don't have a pharmacy, we don't have a full-time grocery store. The closest healthcare services available to the residents in the Platte Canyon area are the Conifer Family Medical Clinic and the Stride Clinic that operates out of Conifer. The Stride Clinic is also operating a mobile van that comes to Bailey one day a week for 4 hours. And the Conifer Medical Center has a satellite clinic in Evergreen. However, that is slated to close in September. Our veterans have to access their health care at a clinic in Golden, or for a more complete palette of services, they need to go to the VA hospital or the clinic that are located on the Anschutz CU Medical campus, and that is in Aurora. So the next available healthcare that we can access from our area is that in the Denver metro area. We do have limited mental health services in our county. Those include Diversis, which is the provider of last resort, basically, and they have a clinic in Bailey 2 days a week that they have hours at. And then we have some private providers also. And then additionally, we have 2 dentists that have full-time offices, but that does not make healthcare. Per the international definition of a healthcare desert, medical deserts are areas where population healthcare needs are unmet, partially or totally, due to the lack of adequate access or improper quality of healthcare. These can be caused by, number 1 is insufficient human resources. Number 2 is a lack of adequate facilities. Number 3 is long waiting times. 4 is a disproportionately high cost for services. And 5 is in all other sociocultural barriers. So we have, so the emergency service, can we back up 1 slide? Thank you. So our nearest clinics, to talk about those in a little more detail. The Conifer Family Medical Clinic is at capacity currently. They do not take Medicaid. They have taken limited Medicare patients, and they're currently not taking private insurance patients because they don't have the resources. They do have a full-time clinic. They have a lab, they have x-ray services, and they can do emergency services. But if they're not taking any patients, that doesn't help, especially because a large number of the people in the Bailey area are either on Medicaid, Medicare, or both, and they might also have additional insurance. As far as Stride goes, they're open 2 days a week at their Mountain Resource Center location in Conifer. They can provide they have a phlebotomy clinic and a tech who can run the centrifuge. So they can do blood draws for STDs, STIs, and like blood sugar. Anything beyond that, they have to have Quest Diagnostics, pick it up, take it down to their labs and process the work. They also have telehealth, but as we're all aware, telehealth may not be allowable by Medicare come September. So that's a concern. They do not provide urgent care or emergency services. Those kinds of services, they recommend that their clients go down to Wheat Ridge to their nearest emergency urgent care clinic, or you can go to Lutheran Hospital or to the University of Colorado Health Center in Aurora, because both of those are on the Epic network, and the Epic network and the Stride organization can share electronic records through that network. They also don't have X-ray services at either Conifer or Bailey. And so if you need X-rays, they recommend that you go down to either their Belmar or their Peoria Street locations, or to one of the two hospitals mentioned previously. They do. Oh, and so then the other thing is their Bailey clinic is only open 1 day a week for 4 hours. So if you're fortunate enough to get ill on Monday evening and you can go there on Tuesday, that's great. If you get sick on Wednesday, you've got to wait a whole week to see them because the Stride Clinic in Conifer is also at capacity and they can't see new patients. Our veterans have to go all the way down, as mentioned previously, to either Golden or to Aurora. So emergency services do not equal primary care. More than 20% of our EMS calls result in declined transport. Sometimes that's even because an individual says, gee, I know I need to go down, but once I'm there, how am I going to get home? I don't have the resources, I don't have the money, I don't have the connections. In addition to that, one of our fire department spokespersons shared that most of these people are seeking care that's unavailable in the Bailey area, and that the ambulance service ends up being a substitute for primary or urgent care. The EMS finds that to be very high cost in terms of staff and vehicle strain, and their patients' needs have to be addressed. There's no two ways about it. And they need a medical provider, but because there's no one in Bailey, they end up using the 911 services. The patient can be transported then down to Denver to an emergency department. That might end up in them incurring, or their insurance incurring, up to $1,000 more just because of the transport and going to an ED department versus a local clinic. And then the other concern is that it takes our EMS services out of the district for extended periods of time, minimum 4 hours usually per transport. And then that also adds to extra fuel cost, extra strain on the vehicles, and then a lack of local skilled resources and EMS people when we might need them. So 911 is the most expensive and the least efficient delivery system of healthcare there is. Transportation also should not be a barrier to healthcare, but it is in the Platte Canyon area. We have no local transit. We have one regional route that is served, but not in Bailey. They go right through Bailey, don't even stop there. We all know how hazardous Highway 285 can be, whether it's in the winter when we're having storms and accidents close the highway, or the highway becomes impassable. Can be in the summer, anytime from Thursday evening to Monday afternoon, when we have all of the tourists and people heading to recreational opportunities drive right up 285 through Bailey, and they cause traffic jams, the traffic goes slow, there's accidents. So 285 is always a concern, especially in an emergency. Additional transportation barriers are that we have people with unreliable vehicles. They don't have the money for gas. or they have difficulty driving, maybe due to age, maybe due to health concerns, perhaps vision concerns. So they end up asking their neighbors and friends to take them to medical appointments in the Denver area. That requires a commitment of minimum of 4 hours from their neighbor or friends. And that can be difficult to find people with that much time to share. So once again, they use the ambulance. Also, we do have a ride share. We're very fortunate to have one. However, they charge $90 minimum each way, and they face the same hazards on 285 that any other vehicle would face. And our seniors and veterans have a particularly challenging time, especially when we talked earlier about health concerns and the inability to drive. But a lot of our veterans suffer from PTSD, and being in a large metro area exacerbates that. And that is not something that they like to do, is going to town. So as we're talking about the distances and the barriers to transportation, consider that from County Road 43A and 285 to get to the Conifer Medical Center takes 15 minutes on a good day. To get to the Evergreen Family Medical Center is 34 minutes. And to get to US 285 and C470, and there's not a facility there, takes another 29 minutes. If you want urgent care, the closest urgent care is 37 minutes away, down in the Wheat Ridge area. And then finally, as you think about the time that it takes to access care, we all know nobody lives at 43A and 285. So people have to get out of their subdivisions before they even get to the point where we started counting minutes and miles previously. The least might be 5 minutes. Some can be up to a half an hour. That's a lot of extra time to add to your need for healthcare, especially in an emergency. So why is a local clinic essential? First of all, as we already said, Conifer is at capacity and cannot expand any further. Stride has limited hours and services and space, and they are not looking at expanding any further. We have 10,000 residents who are underserved and need medical care. And having medical care in our community improves the quality of life. It reduces stress on our 911 services, and it supports our community and the needs that we have for adequate health care.
My name is Kim Mickelson, and I appreciate being here today. So let's talk a little bit more about the need for proposed services. Yep. You know, the reality is I want to talk a little bit more about the poor health outcomes as a result of this. We've hit on the fact that Park County is designated as both a medically underserved population and a health professional shortage area. That means that even by state and federal standards, we simply don't have enough providers for our population. That's our reality. Access to healthcare has consistently ranked in every single survey that has been done in this county as one of the top 5 concerns for our residents. From even in round the table, all these discussions come up over and over again. Without local options, again, our residents are left with 2 choices. We've heard that very clearly. It's either delay care or EMS, which, as we know, is a very expensive way to do that. So it puts that burden on EMS, and more importantly, it puts lives at risk. Next slide. The aspect of this, though, that I think is most critical is the outcome, and as a result of our lack of healthcare. You know, one of the most heartbreaking examples to me as I was reading through this data was that our suicide death rate is 2.5 times higher than the state average, and only 31% of those who died of suicide ever received mental health care. That's significantly lower than both our region and the state. And they aren't just statistics, these are lives lost. But it's not just mental health. And we all know mental health is a big issue. Only 26% of female Medicare enrollees in Park County receive mammogram screenings. For all of us women, we know that's a critical and life-saving test. and 3 out of 4 older women aren't getting it. Broader data point is shocking and applies nationally for rural America. The mortality rate for rural working adults is 43% higher than in urban areas. We're more likely to die of heart disease, cancer, respiratory illness, and stroke. Part of this is obviously due to our lack of healthcare access. So this isn't just about convenience, it's about survival. We need local care because our lives literally depend on it. Again, I think this is a critical point of stressing the EMS impact here, because EMS, we all look to them for fire protection and all kinds of things as well. And we see a strain in Bailey because we don't have to guess whether there's a lack of healthcare. The data from EMS that they've provided points it out clearly. They had 1,278 calls in 2024, and they've reported that 80% of those were EMS incidents. And about 20% of those patients declined transport, just like Patty talked about. That means that people called an ambulance because they had nowhere else to go. And in many cases, they maybe couldn't have good transportation. They couldn't afford to get down the hill or even really require an ER visit. They just needed basic care that just wasn't available. The fire department also found that 70% of all of the calls that involved behavioral and mental health calls were in Park County came from the Platte Canyon district. Now, that's kind of frightening. And then on top of that, the fire district's call volume has increased 25% last year and doubled since 2015. That's not sustainable for them, and it's not safe for our community. Even at a Board of County Commissioners meeting, UPass Health Service also reported that 58% of their behavioral health calls in a certain period of time came from Bailey. So, and even then they said the numbers probably would have been higher, but there's weather, distance, lack of providers made it harder to respond. So that just isn't about system strain. It's about lives delayed and declined care due to a broken patchwork of access and too few providers. We can and must do better for our residents. We talked about 285. We live with it every day. It's a tough one. Based on our geography, these barriers are very real for our people. Just one organization, the Seniors Alliance of Platte County, had more than 60 medical ride requests last year. And it's not just them. HOA leaders routinely send out emails to our different groups saying, senior needs a ride. And as Patty mentioned, it is a very big ask because it's multiple hours per day. And we step up and we try and do what we can. Also, we just don't have services. When COVID made in-person visits basically impossible, the local 9 health fairs that came up, they really stepped up. They did screenings, blood work, flu shots in our community. And in both 20 and 21, over 120 people showed up. But most importantly, each of those years, 8 or 9 people were flagged for serious health issues like diabetes and cancer, conditions that may not have been caught without these local screenings. But now the health fairs are gone and the lifeline doesn't exist anymore. Our terrain, our weather, our isolation makes healthcare harder to reach and emergencies more dangerous. When you live on a mountain road that might not be plowed or drive an hour to see a provider, these risks do add up. They take a toll. We've all acknowledged this. The 2023 health assessment plan approved by the Board of Commissioners identified mental health, access to care, and transportation as top priorities for the next 5 years. But here's what I think is very important. Oops. Yeah. Okay. Again, I hit this point. It's come up in every survey. This happens to be one from the most recent strategic master plan. As you can see there, it's number 3. Okay. Next slide. Beyond the numbers, what truly tells the story, and I think really what motivated this effort, is what our neighbors are saying and asking loud and clear in surveys, in meetings, in one-on-one discussions, at book clubs, bridge games, around the table at a coffee shop or in restaurants. We need a doctor. We don't have one. It's not common, it's a call for help. Parents with children with special needs are really in a bind. There's very limited care, which forces families to either leave the community or drive hours on an ongoing basis for basic services. One resident said, really want to get my parents up here, but they won't retire here. There's just no services. People want to stay in Bailey and age in Bailey. I think we all do. But the lack of healthcare is pushing us out. And maybe most telling of all, it goes back to the EMS. Ambulance is the only crisis. That's not real access. That's an emergency system being stretched beyond its purpose. We've listened to these stories. We've taken them to heart. The proposed health service district is a direct response to what our community has told us it needs. We all are very active in the community and talk to a lot of people. They want access, dignity, and the ability to care for ourselves and our families without leaving our homes. Their voices matter, and we've listened, and they've shaped this effort from the very beginning. Okay. I have my slides out of order. Okay. The need for healthcare is clear. We've made that point, and these points have been emphasized time and time again. It's undeniable, but so is a solution. A local clinic is not just an idea, it's a proven sustainable model. At the South Park Health District, where a similar clinic is thriving today with a much smaller population base than in the Platte Canyon area. Before back, I think it was Charlotte that mentioned previous clinic, before they closed down, one of the previous clinics had a patient base of more than 7,000 patients. We had a lot of data on that. And it didn't close because of lack of demand. It closed because of lack of sustainable funding. With a stable health service district behind it, the new clinic is projected to see between 11 and 20 patients a day on average as it gets fully ramped up. That's real consistent need. It is difficult to make everybody in the Platte Canyon area aware of services. We found that to be very difficult, so it does take some time. By offering full service primary care close to home, we'll finally meet the everyday healthcare of our neighbors in a way that's sustainable for the long term.
I'm Tim Peterson, a longtime resident of Bailey, Colorado. The next couple of slides are discussing the high-level financial aspects of this proposal. What you see here on this first slide is three primary avenues of funding. The most obvious, of course, is patient billing. Most of the revenue would come from insurance plans, including government plans. I'm on TRICARE and Medicare. I have a disabled son who is also on Medicare. We can't get any services in Conifer currently, but this proposal, this district would be required to accept patients from all aspects of the economic spectrum. So most of the revenue would come from those insurance plans. The probably the most famous insurance or revenue stream would be from the 1% sales tax. This is very similar to the current Land, Water, and Trust Fund Sales Tax Act. But I would like to highlight here that we have included a 10-year sunset clause. This would not be a tax in perpetuity. Then the probably not the most obvious, but another significant source of funding would be grants from existing organizations and avenues. We know there are already some state type of organizations such as the Delta Healthcare Services or the Rural Provider Access Program. Those organizations would be able to give us grants. Most of us have heard of the Gates Foundation, and Shoots and Betcher also have similar organizations that provide grants to community service organizations. And these would be significant sources of revenue for upfront expenses, such as renovating the proposed property that we're looking at and getting in some of the initial equipment upfront. And significant in that respect is that we have already been contacted by an experienced grant writer who has heard of this proposal and is very interested in supporting us. And they are willing to donate their time and energy on a volunteer basis. So none of the money raised through this proposal would be required to go after those grants. The next slide is just looking at what our proposed expenses would be. And significant in the first year, of course, is facility setup, renovating an existing space, and then getting the initial equipment, what you see here, telehealth equipment, x-ray machine, that type of thing. Initial office supplies, lab supplies, all of that, of course, would be an expense in the first year. The sales tax revenue, as I mentioned, is very similar to the Land and Water Trust Fund. So we have a pretty good idea of what the income would be from that. We estimate over $1 million in the first year just from that sales tax. And that would cover quite a bit of the expense in getting this set up. The next year's expenses would probably be a little less because we don't have the upfront costs involved in that. Then the next thing I would like to just talk about briefly is the board of directors. And what's pertinent here is that under state law, they have to be elected by the people in this district. The citizens of the district would choose 5 members. The most significant thing in my mind is that these are unpaid directors. We're not looking at thousands of dollars in salary for a board of directors to run this district once the district is created. They will be on 4-year terms, and once we get the initial 5 members on board, those terms would then be staggered to keep us running forward without a wholesale change at any given point. The last thing I would like to just address briefly is probably the most common question we get from the community around us is, why don't we have more specific financial data? Do we have a pending lease on the property? Do we have a handshake agreement with a provider that is willing to come? Under state statute, none of that is possible for this committee to do. This committee's sole purpose, as was mentioned in our introduction, is to get this on the ballot and have the voters say, yes, we want this, or no, we don't. And if they want it, then the district itself is formed. And as a legal entity, they are the ones that would have the legal authority to then pursue operational agreements for those specific expenses. That's nothing that we can address as a committee. Thank you.
Hi, guys. Yeah. No, I'm fine. Currently, the final development of the facility will be the purview of the elected board of directors. That is not in our purview, as was just mentioned. However, at this time, we do have a commitment from an owner of space that has previously been used as a healthcare facility. So the basic requirements for a medical clinic are in place. It would be over 2,000 square feet, includes 3 exam rooms, lab space, offices, a break room, potential expansion to an additional over 1,000 square feet. It already has 400 amps of electricity to support radiological equipment and high-speed broadband for telehealth, which would expand the ability for the practitioners to reach other healthcare providers outside of our area. At this time, looking at that particular property, if we are able to get it, the rent would include heat, water, and electricity. So very doable.
I'm not sure this was my slide, but I can do it. Okay, thank you. So security for district obligations is one of the statute requirements that is required for this. And we are very happy and pleased to say that no county property or revenue is pledged as collateral for this plan. We are relying solely, if it passes and that the citizens and the voters pass the 1% sales tax, there will be no property tax addition to your property tax. There'll be none. And there will be no indebtedness. So there will be no obligations. So we don't need to guarantee ours because we don't propose any. We're proposing a sales tax, not a property tax, not taking out loans for any kind of indebtedness for this program. So we're very pleased to be able to say that. And that the approval of the service plan will have no county liability, and that the district is going to be solely responsible for its debts going forward. If at any point in the future, a future board would decide that they wanted to expand or build out or something like that, they would not be able to do so without going back to the voters. The voters have full control of this, not a board, obviously not the committee. As we said, we're not that group that's going to be doing this. And so please know that in the future, if there were going to be any indebtedness, that that board would have to go to the people, just like they do for a school bond referendum, or the fire department, anybody who needs to go to the voters for additional funding. This is exactly like those. The voters would have to approve. The voters have full control. Okay, thank you. So, it's backwards than yours. Okay, conclusion. So why do we need this district? I hope that what you've heard here today has offered you compelling reasons. Also, the plan is over 30 pages long and has a lot more to it. And we tried not to read the plan to you today because we'd be here till 10. So in the interest of time, we just hit the highlights, but quality care is not sustainable without public support in rural areas. We hear this everywhere. We see this everywhere. You hear about rural health care. They need help because Medicare and Medicaid do not reimburse enough for a provider to keep the lights on. So we need public support. That's why we haven't had a clinic for over 15 years. The district closes the funding gap with that tax and with grants. We'd be able to go after these grants with the district. The sales tax ensures a stable, consistent funding. When we have grants only, the grants come and go. They get rescinded. We only get them for a year, or they expire after 2 years. The tax would ensure the consistent funding we need to attract providers to come up here and establish a clinic. And the service plan meets all the statutory requirements and criteria under CRS 32-1-203. So the requirement A was, is there a clear community need? We believe there is in the plan and what you've heard here today. We have documented from multiple sources that we have a lack of providers and access. We're designated as a healthcare desert. Can you go back? Sorry. We've talked about how it impacts our families, our seniors, the burden on our EMS and our well-being. And a local primary care clinic would save time, it would save our taxpayer money, and it would save lives. Requirement B, is there existing space, or the existing services inadequate? We don't have any. We have 0 doctors for 10,000 people in our area. Our closest doctors, as you saw on the maps, if you're lucky enough to go to Conifer, great. But if you can't get in, if you're not a patient there, and even when you are, I'm a patient there, I can't get in. I call and they're like, sorry, go to urgent care down the hill. So even if you could go to Conifer and get in, that would be remarkable, but we know we can't. So it's an hour down the hill to Denver. The most close clinics are at capacity and not accepting new patients. When we have 23% on Medicaid or uninsured, they can't access local care because none of the Conifer Clinic won't take them. We need a clinic up in our area that will accept all these insurances. And we know that Bailey's going to grow. I mean, we continue to grow. So the demand is only going to get bigger. So we do project an unmet demand. Thank you. Next one. C, requirement C and D in the state statute. Is the district capable? We have an economical proven model that we see in South Park. They were able to do this with a 1% tax. We feel like we can do so as well with 4 times the population of Fairplay Alma and the entire dispersed Fairplay Alma area put together. So we have 4 times their population. There will be no property tax or debt proposed. Again, really want to make that clear. Your property taxes will not be affected. And that we are capable of funding the clinic as revenues grow, as the clients and patients increase, we would be able to grow with them. Next slide. And then that requirement 2.5 A through E that was read at the beginning here, the statutory compliance. There are no other entity plans to deliver care in a timely manner. Nobody's raising their hands to plop a clinic in our Platte Canyon area. Our standards align with Park County expectations. We're part of your strategic plan. It's all over the earlier plan and the one you guys just adopted, the 2020, is it the 2026 now master plan? I think they were writing it, or 25, you're saying it today, right? So the 2025 master plan, and it's also woven throughout the whole entire 2023 CHAPS Community Health Assessment Plan for Park County. It is in the best interest of our area. It serves all age groups, not just seniors. It addresses the 43% higher rural mortality rates. We believe we can save lives. We can bring down those mortality rates with access to local care so people can get what they need to work and with a provider that will help them maintain their best health. It promotes the health, safety, and prosperity of our people, which is the mission of the BOCC. So it's time for a change. We expect the BOCC to approve this plan and let we, the people, decide. Thank you. And I would like to ask our did you want to come up at this point to do any kind of follow-up? Later, okay, I'm directing that, good for those on Zoom, sorry, to our lawyer. So that concludes. We would like to have we the people decide.
I'm Melanie Brown, and I'd first really, really, really appreciate what you said and done already here today. So true and so relevant to me and to my family and to all the residents, especially in Bailey. I just want to give you one example of what they said we need. I was called by a friend to take her to an appointment down the hill because she's blind. On the day of the appointment, the weather was terrible. Snowed like, you know how it snows. My husband offered to drive us, which was good because he drives better in that type of stuff. Took us 2 hours to get down the hill. We made it to the appointment half hour late. It continued to snow, and it took us until 5 o'clock that evening to get home for a simple appointment. This is not right. It's not fair to her. It's not fair to us. We risked literally our lives. We saw, I met, probably 15 cars off the road that day. So that's just one example. I could give you many, but I won't.
Tim Peterson again from Bailey. Just speaking as a citizen, a user of this service. I mentioned my son earlier, who is on the Colorado state medical programs, Medicaid, Medicare, those types of things. Twice each winter, he gets a sore throat. He's very susceptible to ENT infections. When that happens, when I see that he's not feeling well, I have to drive for an hour to Littleton to sit with a nurse for 5 minutes to get a throat culture or a nose culture. Hour back, 2.5 hours out of my day, 100 miles on my car for a 5-minute visit with a nurse. And a district here that would accept government insurance plans would just be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack Roberts. I'm here in support of this proposal. I've lived in Bailey for over 20 years now. I have a daughter that has a traumatic brain injury that we're having to go up and down the mountain to appointments and what have you in the city. She's not currently living with me. She's down in the city, but we're having to travel clear down there. We need services up in our part of the county that we can go to easily. So please, please, please consider allowing this to be placed onto the ballot. Thank you.
Teresa Hofnagel from Bailey. I've lived here almost 50 years. I came in 1976. And when I came, we had Dr. Restusha, and he was here for several years. After his practice, he retired. Dr. Reed came, and Dr. Reed served in Bailey, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years. And then he realized that he couldn't support his practice there. So he set up what eventually has become Conifer Mountain Family Medicine down in Conifer. And several other doctors and practitioners have rotated through there, and it's become a very large business. We also had, in the time that I've lived here, 2 different clinics that were set up by grants. One of them was from the Pikes Peak area. I remember that. And they were both set up in the building that was referred to, which is at the top of, it's about 43A, which we've been talking about. It's a good location, and it is all set up, ready to go for a clinic. I used those clinics in the past for my kids' sports physicals. They had at Platte, you have to have a physical every year if you want to participate in any of the sports, except for speech team, you don't need one. And so that was very handy to have that. My kids also would occasionally get strep throat, as would I, and that was handy to be able to go over there as well. We run a contracting business. We'd occasionally have an injured employee, or my son would get injured, or my husband, and we could actually run down and have something checked out without having to call the ambulance. We've got a great ambulance service, but we overuse them for things that could be better handled in a clinic situation. I am so proud of this committee. They have worked so hard for 2 years to get this onto the ballot. I'm also grateful to the commissioners for hearing this again. And one thing I want to point out, and I know this is a political point, but this is an off season, and if this could be on this fall's ballot, we will have people coming who are higher educated voters. I don't mean educated, higher information voters, people that are paying attention, that are interested in this. I'm so concerned to see my county, whenever one of my fellow citizens sees the word tax, they vote no. And that's not the way it should be. We shouldn't limit ourselves because of the word tax. We need to really consider what we are asking our fellow citizens to pay for. And I think, as we've all seen here, this is really an important issue and an important cause and a good cause. And we should have a tax to help pay for this. So I would really encourage the commissioners to approve it so we can get on this fall's ballot and get our higher information voters out to support it. Because that's going to be the big fight, is to sell this on the Bailey side. Thank you.
Like Tim, I was on this committee for a very personal reason. My household represents 2 of those declined transports. And I have experienced both personally and in my business the need for healthcare. I have twin grandsons, but when they were about 2.5, we were trying to get ready to go to Bailey Days. I'm putting shoes on one. The other one, I turn around for 30 seconds and he managed to open up the childproof top of toilet bowl cleaner and got into it. I turned around to see it on his skin, on his clothes, in his hands, and I panicked as a grandmother. I threw him underwater. I got on to poison control. They didn't answer. And I will tell you, the dispatcher couldn't get him either. I called EMS. Austin and another, I will never forget them, came to my house. They checked him over and said it didn't look like any had gotten into his mouth or his eyes, but they recommended that he be watched for down in Children's. And so I was shaken. My husband closed the store and took one grandson down while I watched the other. And he spent 6 hours watching TV and eating popsicles, but nonetheless, it was terrifying. Recently, I had an episode. After a stressful situation in my life, I went haywire. My blood pressure went, my heart rate went up, didn't know what was happening. I felt very weird. My husband called EMS. They came over and checked me out. They talked to me. They checked my heart. We did a lot of conversations. They said, we can take you, transport you, or you could go down. We sat and talked about it. And we said, it'll be an hour and a half down. We'd probably sit there 4 hours in the emergency room, and then we'd have another couple hours back to probably be told the same thing. So we did not transport. As a business, I've seen lots of scary things. We own a business on Wellington Road. So we are just off the Colorado Trail. A lot of people fishing down there. About 2 years ago, a very scary situation happened. A woman came walking down Wellington barefoot with a long t-shirt. As she walked into my store, she asked to use a phone. It was very clear for me and one of my customers, who I know very well and was very perceptive, that something bad had happened. She was not very communicative at first, but she finally told us that she had met a guy at a party down in the city. He got in a car with him. He brought her up here. He left her. She had no clothes, no shoes, no phone, no anything. So she was trying to get help. Anyway, we called the sheriff. Deputy came out. She didn't want to do anything. We needed some help. We have had a gentleman who went over his bike on the Colorado Trail, broke a collarbone. I waited for his grandparents to come from Buena Vista to help him. So we've seen people short of oxygen. We've seen dehydration. We've seen people with fishing hooks through their hands. I mean, anything and everything at our store. So I'm passionate about this. I'm out of time.
You asked that we not come up and repeat everything. And so what I mean to do is to provide some emphasis. Need is evident. It seems to me a lot of good words have been put out. A lot of good information has been offered that makes it pretty clear that there is a need here. I was shocked by the number 10,000 residents, 0 doctors. That's not just a little out of skew. That's wrong. There's something wrong there. Overdependence on EMS. That's not what they're there for. And so sooner or later, we're going to get caught. They're going to get caught in an untenable situation if there are no alternatives. And this should be the primary alternative. 285, all I'm going to say. Thank heavens they're doing some work on it, but that's all I'm going to say. And it occurs to me, this wasn't mentioned, but there is an impact on property values to not having a clinic nearby. Real estate agents figure this out quick, and okay, I said I was only going to do emphasis. That was a new one. So the need is evident, the response is appropriate. A clinic is what's needed. If we could clone what's down in Conifer and drop it in Bailey, that'd be nice. I mean, for a model, that's nice. So we have a sense of what needs to be done. Financing, the administrative approach to this that's been laid out is sensible insofar as they can go in laying anything out. Obviously, they've got their limitations for what they can and can't treat for you. But it seems sensible. Follows the rules. My head starts to spin when we get CR 101-3-, okay, fine. I believe you. But clearly they followed and have been careful and thoughtful and meticulous about following the rules in presenting this request and proposal to you. So I say, give it to the voters. Let the voters decide. I don't consider it a shoe-in. I wish it was, but let the voters decide. That's kind of the American way, isn't it? Thank you.
Okay. Well, I really want to thank the work the committee has done on this. It's unbelievable. Hours and hours and hours. And, Commissioner Whistle, you read the statute in advance of the meeting, which was a good thing to do. And it was really the Board of County Commissioners, and you emphasized shall disapprove unless. Well, I think that they've really responded to the unless, and it's kind of seems to me, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, don't know all the legal implications, but certainly seems like they've met the requirements of the statute. Just on a personal note, I mean, my wife and I have lived here 9 years, I guess. And when we first got here, we're like, okay, we've got to figure out healthcare. And Conifer was a no-go. They weren't taking any new patients. So we ended up, she now goes to Evergreen for primary care, and I go down the hill. And when there is, I mean, recently, for instance, she fell on the ice, broke her shoulder. Oh, I had to go down the hill. I probably a few years ago, I had a seizure when they determined I'm not an epileptic, but it was a grand mal seizure, and I was, unconscious and came to down the hill. I mean, I think of, for instance, stroke victims and how important it is to get that shot within, well, as quickly as you can. And if you don't get it as quickly as you can or should, you're in a totally different situation than if you get it earlier than later. So, it just seems absolutely clear to me that the need is there. And again, kind of echoing what Stuart just said, put it to the people. I mean, it's obviously a political situation. Here we are in front of the Board of County Commissioners. We're asking for a vote. It's politics all the way. And yet it's not going to be that, it's not like a Republican versus Democrat, progressive versus conservative. There's going to be people who vote, because I'm expecting that this vote will happen. There's going to be Republicans and Democrats and independents who vote against it. And there's going to be Republicans and Democrats and independents who vote for it. So just put it to the people, democracy in action. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Fitting. I have been practicing primary care medicine in Park County on this side of the pass since 2004 until my semi-retirement in 2024. I also am the president of the South Park Health Service District, and I'm here to speak to the feasibility of a district doing what has been proposed. Before I dive into that, I do want to say my experience, you're providing primary care in this very rural area, this healthcare desert, would certainly endorse everything that has been proposed by the Bailey side. Our district has been in place for almost 8 years now. We have been successful in getting the clinic going, providing broad spectrum primary care. See between 8,000 and 10,000 people this last year. And that's with a population that is much smaller than it's on the side. So I think certainly there is sufficient number.
Can I have a point of privilege? Would you mind speaking into the microphone? Several people cannot hear you online.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay. Certainly there's sufficient demand to support the services provided by a health service district on the Bailey side. The 1% sales tax has been more than sufficient for us to provide the financial cushion that is needed to keep the clinic on a sound financial footing. And it also has allowed us to look at providing additional health related services for this area. Now that we have the clinic firmly entrenched and clearly sustainable, we are also expanding to provide pharmacy services as well as physical therapy services. So the 1% sales tax is more than sufficient to provide support for a clinic and then additional services as may become apparently needed over time. So I fully endorse the proposal and I would encourage the commissioners to support putting it on a ballot. Thank you.
Scott Dodge, 1317 Meadow Drive, Fair Play. I just want to reiterate for the record that the strategic master plan that was adopted was the 2025 strategic master plan, and goal number 4 of that plan is strengthening community health and essential services. Many Park County residents lack access to medical care, groceries, childcare, and essential services. The county's rugged terrain and dispersed population create challenges for infrastructure, transportation, and healthcare access. Addressing these gaps is critical to improving livability, supporting families. The aging population further highlights the necessity of enhanced senior healthcare, transportation, and in-home support services. And strategy 4.2 is strengthening healthcare and pharmacy access through land use tools to support healthcare infrastructure, expansion and improvements, and encouraging localized healthcare district initiatives, which is exactly what this program is. I just want to mention as well too, the town of Fairplay, we also went through this back in 2016, 17, I believe. And we also met with the same opposition that will probably meet on this go around as well too. And we put it to the voters, and the voters decided whether they wanted it or not. And obviously they overwhelmingly did. And it's been quite successful for our community since its inception. So yeah, I'm in favor, and I would really hope that you guys put this on the ballot in November. Thank you.
This is from the perspective of fire adapted Bailey, and when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. I got to thinking about what would happen in our community if there was a fire event and we had people who were overcome by smoke or burnt or harmed in any way by the fire. The first people that showed up would be the ones who would be transported away, and then everyone else would be without any kind of medical care, any kind of way to triage who needed to go and who could be handled right there at the clinic if we had a clinic. So I just wanted to sort of put that out there from my perspective, how having a clinic would be invaluable in the event of any kind of wildfire event or really any kind of natural disaster. Thank you very much.
My last name is Loria, Loria. And I would just like to say that I endorse this proposal and hope that you will go ahead and pass it. I support all that's been said, and it really is striking to think about, you know, what if we have a big event up here and no one to help out? So years, I started out at the Bailey Clinic. Luckily, I got to come through when that ended. But there are so many people that need help, and I don't see how you could not put this up for a vote. I do urge you to allow the community to vote on it.
Audrey Krebs. Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you, commissioners. Thank you for allowing the committee to deliver the plan. Also, thank you to the volunteers that have completed this research and developed the healthcare plan. I know you spent years doing it, hours and hours of work. Thank you. I served as a county commissioner for 10 years in Minnesota, and I understand how important it is to listen to your constituents. The majority, the 1% sales tax, will be fulfilled by people that live outside of the Bailey area that are traveling through. I love Bailey. I am a resident of Bailey. I need health care. I have cancer. I've had to drive myself in the middle of the night a couple times to the ER myself. And that's just not right. So commissioners, I ask you, why wouldn't you allow the people that voted you in to vote for a proposed healthcare system? It may or may not pass, but yet your constituents can make that determination. Please, please put this on the ballot for all of us that live here in the Bailey area to make that determination, whether or not we should have a healthcare system here. Thank you so much for allowing us to come before you today to visit and give our opinions on what's needed here. We really, really need some health care. I have to go to Denver just for a simple blood test. I can't even get it in Conifer. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I have something a little different in terms of an emergency situation to offer that could occur. One time we had a commissioner meeting, it's been in the last year, I believe, where even you, Mr. Whistle, talked about the full service hospital that was, well, as full service as you could get, but full service hospital that was available at Fairplay in the early 1970s. And I just wanted to say that I think this is a very solid plan for, you know, these people put a lot of work into this, but it makes a lot of sense. The process makes sense. Their methods, the way they've gotten to this makes sense. I'd like to say that my father was killed on Highway 9 at the Yarrow curve. When we hit head on, the whole family, mother, father, me, brother, sister, at the Yarrow curve, we were heading back towards Colorado Springs after looking at leaves in October 17th, 1971. And my mother was bleeding to death. And the only reason that my mother is still here today is because at that time, the hunters who came along and found us were able to radio to the EMTs, and the hospital happened to have the blood. So she was stabilized in Fairplay before she was sent down, and she was horribly injured. That was a big truck that hit a little Datsun. So I just wanted to say 285 is a busy highway. It's dangerous. None of us likes it. And I think that the possibility that people die there is high. I see articles about it. And I think that maybe even the clinic could give people a little more chance to survive something like that, like it did my mother. My father, that was impossible. But I'd like you to consider the emergency nature of things also. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for considering this, and I hope you'll support it, full-fledged support it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't add much more to, I think it's been pretty eloquent, but when I was at a previous county commissioner board meeting there, I remember the objections that the previous set of commissioners have had. And I just hope that for the new member, as well as the two that were there before we went through this, we'll just really listen to what's been proposed and why. And I remember some of the objections you all had voiced previously, and I think we as a community have done about everything we can to satisfy you, and hope that you'll just let us vote and decide. And that's it. Thank you.
Brenda Allen.
Thank you.
I just want to add, there are 42 special health districts in Colorado. So this is not new. This is all over Colorado where they have many of these districts. So I just wanted to add that comment.
I'm from a small town in Michigan originally. We had about 5,000 people. We happened to be the county seat, so we had a hospital. And while I was growing up, we always had between 6 and 7 doctors in the town. I look at this and I don't understand why there couldn't be a vote for this. This is ridiculous. It's backwards. You've got 10,000 people that have no services. What is that about? My hometown now is about the size of the area in terms of population that you have in the Bailey area. They still have the county hospital and they still have several doctors. So I think you should go ahead and make sure that these people can vote for this. There's no reason not to. Thank you.